So the agenda for today, again, beyond the welcome address for our host, that is Pelliconi Innovation Silicon Valley, we will have 15 minutes to go through the main highlights of the report that we co-produced with them, focus on the disruptive innovation trends in the beverage and closure market. And we'll give you some highlights on the main findings of this, what we call landscaping report, trying to understand what are the trends, where the beverage market is up to, also through some other industry players. Afterwards, we will move into the discussion phase. We'll have a panel more, let's say, corporate-oriented. Today, we have the pleasure to have together with Pelliconi, probably one of the largest customers of Pelliconi, and that is AB InBev, that you probably know as being one of the largest players in the beverage sector worldwide. And so we'll have a panel with them discussing from a corporate perspective what can be done for driving innovation in the beverage industry, and particularly the focus of today will be sustainable packaging. And afterwards, we have invited to join us 3 super cool Silicon Valley startups. Specifically, we will have FullCycle, Purcell and Turn, and they will be presenting what they are up to innovating in this specific area. Particularly, we'll take a look at the bioplastic and reusable bottles that are two main big topics. And then there will be some challenges, some debate from the corporate perspective as well, both from Pelliconi and AB InBev. So this is the menu of the day. We landed with a networking reception where we'll have a couple of good drinks. I think the beer will definitely be in the menu because it's part of the game, but not only. And again, we'll have the opportunity to have more informal networking among us. So that's the plan. And again,
thank you.
Pelliconi has opened an innovation antenna in Silicon Valley, hosted by us a few months ago. And I think, Marco, this is the first deliverable of the innovation antenna. That is this report. It will be presented in a few minutes, and this innovation industry talk, when we will discuss with some corporates and startups and scale-ups how we can make a step forward in the difficult path of sustainability in a more plastic-free world. So that's the topic of today, but I think before starting, it would be super useful for everybody to get a bit more of context about Pelliconi.
Yeah.
That probably is not well known as a name, but many of you have had something of them in your hands. And so, Marco, I'll give you the floor to explain a bit the story of Pelliconi.
Thank you. And I can say I'm very excited to be here because this is our first event in this place. And we have a lot of hopes because Pelliconi has always been a company that's wanted to be best in quality. And after the years of quality, we are now passing through innovation and sustainability. So, and we want to be a reference name in the market of packaging. To be sustainable and innovative. And I think this is a big chance for us. And we want to try to use this as much as possible to give the audience and our customers in the US and overseas that Pelliconi is not only a good producer of crowns or caps, but is only someone that has in his mission the role to be a sustainable company and an innovative company. So this is why we are here, and we hope that this event of today will prove that we have good experience already in the sustainability, and with the help with the Mind Bridge, we will be able to get the most from this part of the world that is famous to be very innovative.
Yes, and by the way, Pelliconi is one of the largest world producer of caps, closures. I think the right number is about 31 or 32 billions, right?
Yes, yes.
Per year. So
yes, this is something, is a number that is always impressive. Yes, it's 32 billion caps. We have different plants. We have 2 plants in China, 2 plants in Italy, 1 in Egypt, 1 in the US, and we are continuously growing, and thanks to our customers, and we are very happy, and we will continue to be very engaged with the sustainability, because the ownership believe that sustainability will be the key of success for the next year.
Thank you, and very, very special to having you with us today. So, going to the report. So this is the report we are presenting today. We have covered next 2 main, we identified 2 main trends, again, that currently are super relevant for the beverage industry. The first one is what will be focused today is what is revolving around the topic of sustainability and the circular economy. There is another big trend we don't have time tonight to explore, to deep dive. That is the one related to traceability and anti-counterfeiting. Again, we don't have, if you go to the next slide, just to give you highlights, we don't have the time to go into that to present you the trends, but again, in the report, there is a similar session with similar data we'll be presenting on the sustainability and circular economy side. You can take a look and deep dive into the data, just for you the sense. Going back to the main topic, that is circular economy and sustainability. First of all, no news, circular economy is definitely booming. Looking at the data in terms of investments, in the past 10 years has been invested in the circular economy, only the US, something about $5 billion. And I think the most impressive data point is that 2 out of this $5 billion has been invested last year. So it's something that is hyper growing. We don't have the data for 2022, but estimate tell us it will be probably north of 3 billion for the year. So again, the growing is going to be maintained. Another data point that is important to be shared with you is that a large chunk of these investments are going to fall into 2 categories. One is sustainable packaging, and the second one is reusable packaging, about 30%. So $3 out of 10. Next. As mentioned, sustainable packaging and reusable packaging are the 2 big trends. Again, sustainable packaging in terms of investment is a bit larger than usable packaging. Particularly, sustainable packaging is probably more relevant for non-alcoholic beverages, not only, but this is the main area of application. In this area, I think there is the largest potential of the use of bioplastics. Obviously, this is one of the areas of the largest waste impact. Keep in mind that Americans send 38 million plastic bottles into landfill per year. And so just to give you a data point. And typically we're talking about the percent of recycled plastic is very, very small percentage of that. So imagine how much damaging are we doing. And then the problem here, or the bottleneck staying in the world of beverages, is that the pricing of bioplastics is still very, very high and not competitive. We're talking about probably 40% higher than what it used to be in order to be widespread. And then, as will be discussed in the second panel today, there's a big topic of the quality of bioplastic, because not all the bioplastic are the same, and there is a big problem of quality. Moving to reusable packaging, again, this is probably where in the world of alcoholic beverages is definitely more impacted, not only, but it's probably when they find application. Is a valuable solution for any environmental waste that is composed with several materials, particularly glass. Again, in this area, tracking and traceability is key, and then the other part of the report is super complementary for understand what could be done over here. The problem over here is that while on the sustainable packaging side, the corporates have the solution to be implemented and have the power to implement it, on this side, the reusable packaging, we need the cooperation of the consumer side. And the consumer side, despite might be willing in terms of general attitude, in terms of behavior, is not that properly cooperative at this point. So there are big educational gap and big gap to be addressed. Next. Top investors, again, this you can find at the list of the most active investor. Let me just give you three main data. I'm not going into names. Number one is that 86% of top investors are from the US, so it's mostly US innovation play. 50% is the percentage of investors coming from Silicon Valley. And the other data point is the world of corporates not particularly active thus far. 3% of investments are coming from corporates. So again, while what we are seeing is that typically in the other sector innovation, the corporate participation is about 1/3, 30%, 40% of the overall investment. Over here, we are talking probably 1/10 of these typical amounts. Next. This is the framework that we use at Beverage for trying to understand where the circular economy, how the circular economy works, industry by industry. This is the application that our research team has done for specifically for the beverage supply chain. And the goal of this framework is to try to identify what are the steps with the highest waste risk. And again, the highest waste risk at the same time is also a large opportunity of improvement. And if you look at where are the areas when definitely they are more impacted, they are more producing waste, and particularly where we can definitely improve the situation. So if you look at these graphics, you can see there are two main areas. Number one is production, and the second one is use. This is the area that definitely the more impact in terms of waste production. As mentioned before, in the production, for the production step is something that corporates are in the power to change if they find economic condition to make it work. Because there are solutions are in place and then they can just to be adopted. Sustainable packaging is the leading example here. For the use, obviously, there is a big problem of education, there's a big problem of incentives, and is a problem of behaviors that cannot be managed or imposed. It's something that requires a cooperation. And so the game is definitely way more complicated. Next. Key challenges for implementing a full circular economy. There are some external challenges and some internal challenges. Just to give you a super 10,000 feet view of this. External challenges. First of all, as mentioned, cultural. Consumers show a big educational gap. 96% of Americans are supporting recycling, but in reality, only 35% of them are actually properly recycling stuff. So again, from saying and doing, there is still a relevant gap. Political, again, you probably heard about the China ban for importing plastic. China's been the trash bin of the US for a while. It's no longer the case, and probably without putting the dust under the carpet, that has been the solution, has been adopted up to a few years ago. Now the dust is piling up, and then there is a certain sense of urgency in finding solutions. And then also there are some structural constraints. Again, there are some materials can be infinitely recyclable for forever and ever. Again, for paper, you're talking about probably 4 to 6 cycles max. And so that's the situation. In terms of internal, so something that is in the hands of the corporates, in terms of processes, there are some pain points. First of all, is mixing recyclable with non-recyclable materials. That's increased substantially the cost. And keep in mind that 1 out of 4 recycling inputs are contaminated, so becoming super expensive to be recycled. Tracking is super important and super complicated because after they exit the retailer, you technically don't know what it happens. And keep in mind that we're talking about 50 kilos of plastic produced and dispersed every year by each of us. And so be conscious with the plastic bottles you might see in this building. Just no. use them properly. Don't be in the part of the 96, but part of the 35%, please. And then in terms of materials, we have a big problem. Plastic is so fucking good to be used, to be transported, and it's cheap and makes our life easier, has made our life super easier. And again, it's 2 to 4 times cheaper than bioplastic, as said. It's substantially unbreakable and is 40% lower than glass. And so again, has a lot of good use. Unfortunately, that's obviously when something is working so well, it's very difficult to be abandoned. Next. What is happening on the corporate side, I think? Because again, the corporates are big actors in this transformation, potential transformation play. Because as mentioned, there is a lot of innovation on this side. The problem is this innovation is not yet properly applied. And again, we'll see more and more innovation. Data of investment are telling us that, but the real question is this innovation has been turned into action, has been executed, has been actually working? And so what is happening and is not properly yet fully happening in the beverage sector is that we have been witnessing a big shift from the traditional R&D, substantial innovation identified in-house, to what is called open innovation. So innovation is substantially produced outside of the company in collaboration, or what I call them innovation vessels, that are startups and scale-ups. And so this tectonic shift, while for other sectors and industries currently is properly and regularly implemented at scale in the beverage industry, we are still probably in the early days. And so there are some new ways of doing innovation that fall under the category of venture client, meaning partnership with startups, CVC, meaning investing into startups, M&A, meaning acquiring startups, innovation labs, entrepreneurship, meaning developing solution internally with an external contribution, tracking trends to innovation labs, innovation antennas, etc., etc. And looking at who is doing what, next slide. In the beverage sector, first of all, this is the 5 main areas that are currently implemented. As you can see, the first way of moving into the era of open innovation, first of all, is understanding and spot trending, meaning try to identify the most interesting trends, innovative trends, in order to identify ways of adoption. And these typical instruments are the innovation antennas that large corporation or mid-sized corporation, in the case of Pelliconi, are opening in the main innovation cluster. Silicon Valley is a leading example. Pelliconi is just opened an office here. AB InBev, they have the startup beer garage down in the valley. PepsiCo is in San Francisco with their PepsiCo labs. Nestlé has innovation antenna in San Francisco. And we see similar form also in the other main hotspots, namely Israel and Tel Aviv. Then, looking at the other different tools, on the investment side, we see that more and more corporates are investing into startups, so taking an equity portion to understand from inside how the innovation has been developed. Some of them, like AB InBev, they do through a structure and dedicated corporate venture capital arm, like the X Ventures. And particularly one of the probably most interesting recent investment has been BanQ. This is a blockchain startup for certifying products and tracking of bottles. Coca-Cola has invested in Cure technology. Nestlé has invested in Origin Materials. Nestlé is rumored to be opening a corporate venture capital arm in Brazil to investing with a dedicated focus in Latin America. So again, there is some movement, but again, it's still most of the time off-balance investments, except for a few examples like AB InBev with a dedicated CVC arm and Nestlé. Venture client means partnering with startups, just having a commercial relationship, co-development relation. They typically start with a pilot. If the pilot works, this pilot has been scaled at a larger level. And so there are some examples. Again, you find in the reports a different example. One is Coca-Cola, that have launched 100% plant-based plastic bottle with Warrant Energy Systems and a paper bottle together with Pebco. This is an example of collaboration turned into products. Danone is collaborating with Lemon Tree to increase the recycling rates. And they have allocated a substantial internal budget to scale up the project, so moving from a pilot to something that works. And then PepsiCo is doing something similar with TerraCycle for recycled plastic, aluminum, other materials in educational facilities. This is some example of collaborations. Then there are other tools like accelerators. AB InBev has an accelerators on sustainable packaging together with other industry players like Coca-Cola, Unilever, and Colgate. PepsiCo Greenhouse in another initiative as part of PepsiCo to, again, try to identify some potential deal flow. And then also Carlsberg is mostly trying to scale up some novel ideas developed internally to the entrepreneurship platform. And finally, there is all the old-fashioned M&A. Again, when you find something interesting, at some point you buy it. And again, it's still part of collaboration. It's definitely a bit more invasive, but it works when it works. And again, some example are HP that acquired Choose Packagings for 3D printing plastic-free molded fiber bottles. Coca-Cola that acquired the majority of Arclight. And AB InBev, for example, they acquired a portfolio company of Zex Ventures called Canvas. So that's just some example of collaboration. Next, again, this is, our research team has a sort of cherry pick the most interesting, what we call scale-ups, the more mature startups, in 3 different main macro areas. The one, innovation impacting operations, and you can see there are different sub-vertical trends, waste to resource, waste to energy, repair, bio-based materials, reuse, remanufacturing, collecting, sorting. So you can find the most interesting innovation vessels that are trying a certain way to change the dynamics in this area. For relating anything that is regarding strategy, again, having a substantial educational impact, and also generating new revenue stream. You can find some of the most interesting startups in the area, and also for technology, you know, big tech technology are impacting also the circular economy. Again, computer vision, Internet of Waste, robotics are something that are very, very interesting trends. You find the most interesting trends over here and some of the most interesting startups that are in a certain way shaping the future, at least, and the process on the try to do that. Next. Finally, just to mention some interesting areas of use of innovation, use case of innovation from main corporate players. In terms of strategy, again, Google is on the forefront for providing guidance to employees, customers, suppliers for more circular ecosystem, mostly on the educational side. In terms of new businesses generated, Tesla, for example, is super in Tesla. Tesla makes over 20% of its revenue by selling carbon credits. It's becoming a new way of business. In terms of operations, Coca-Cola has launched bio-based bottles through collaboration with international startups. AB InBev is pretty advanced in terms of tracking of items to avoid unnecessary procurement. And again, Coca-Cola is still on the forefront of trying to identify recycled plastic produced caps for its Dasani water bottles. And then technology, again, from IoT, Samsung, designer of smart bin, able to recognize trash materials. Blockchain, I think the interesting example is Doe, that is using blockchain. And in terms of robotics, Apple designed a robot which recovers more reusable part from the iPhones. Just some example of use case of innovation trying to, again, not making a dent, but just to trying to move the needle a bit in the right direction. And I think that's it, if I'm not wrong. Again, the download is available from download for free from our ecosystem platform. You can find the link. We will share the link to the Eventbrite page you are registered. And so I think that's it. I would definitely recommend to take a look, also to take about the other part that we have not covered today. This is regarding traceability and counterfeiting. Thank you. So Marco, is up to you.
So let me call here on stage our partners and co-speakers here. Pierluigi Garuti, General Manager at Pelliconi, please welcome, thank you. And then we have Brian Pincus, Global Director at Packaging Sustainability, AB InBev, thank you. And also here from Montague, we have Luciana Frazon, Global Manager at Beer Garage at AB InBev. Where is Fabiana? Welcome, Luciana. All right. I would start with, well, first of all, I think this is one of the elements that, I don't know, I'm looking at the Corona, at the beer, right, that puts the two companies here together, one for the content, the other one for the container, at least the cup. Yeah. And so make one of the multiple examples where you guys are impacting our life and everybody's life. But before going in some of the topics of more of the implementation of some of the activities you've been working on, I wanted to start from a kind of a setting the level field of what is the definition of sustainability in your world. There's a lot of talks about sustainability. Some is actually, technical. Some is very generic. Let's make it practical. In your world of reference, what is sustainability for you? How do you define sustainability within Pelliconi? Maybe we can start from Pelliconi. Yes.
Well, for a packaging company like us, sustainability means a very clear task, working on reducing the CO2 footprint and delivering more and more sustainable solutions that create values for our customers and for the customers of our customers. Means working in different directions, from raw materials, from reduction of the consumption of energy, all what is, let's say, a good impact for the ambient. That's what we have to do. And that's what is driving all our innovation program, all our investments. And basically, there is no initiative that we take that is not driven by this mission.
So to summarize, I mean, your North Star is the reduction of CO2 production. So that whenever you need to take also KPIs around that, that's your North Star. Brian, that's your job, so that should be an easy question for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think sustainability at ABI, it's a kind of a number of things, but really it's around improving the communities where we operate, right? The people, the quality of life, and really connecting with consumers. And so part of how we do this is we really talk about the beer. Beer is inclusive, beer is natural, beer is local, and so we really focus our pillars of sustainability on climate action, on circular packaging, on smart agriculture, on water stewardship, on entrepreneurship. And so we really try to, in the markets where we operate, connect and ensure that we're focusing on all these different areas, especially when you look at beer, right? We're using a lot of water. We're constantly tracking how much water we use to produce, 1 hectoliter of beer, right? But if you look at what's happening with climate change today, what's happening in this reservoir in Nevada, right, in Colorado, it's really important that we're improving water-stressed areas, and so absolutely we're focusing a lot on carbon emissions, but then we have this big challenge, right, where not everyone even has water, right? Water rights are a big concern, and so that's something we're focusing heavily on, in addition to the circular packaging and the entrepreneurship and the smart agriculture. So.
Do you have a bottom line there? Do you have because you mentioned very many different areas that has an impact in your top line of sustainability. What do you measure at the end of the year? Is there a measurement? I know that measurability is one of the key issues that is open-ended and it's hard to address.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a difficult part of the process, the reporting and the assurance of our KPIs and our goals. And so, when we're publishing our annual report, we audit a number of our figures with external agencies, consultants, and some of the top KPIs are percentage of returnable bottles, right? So we're one of the obviously we're the largest brewer in the world. We believe we're the largest provider of returnable packaging. 36% of our volume is coming in returnable bottles. 1 out of every 3 of our bottles is returnable, actually, which is I think really impressive, in the beverage industry. But also the percentage of our farmers that are financially empowered, that's another KPI we look at. We look at our high stress water areas and ensuring that we are reducing the water stress. Trying to think, obviously
That's global, obviously, because we
Global,
haven't really
exactly.
introduced AB InBev, but 600 brands that you manage.
Exactly.
You are everywhere, right? So,
yeah, one out of every 3 beers is ours. So then, yeah, it's massive. So yeah, those are some of our KPIs. That's really how we measure it, and it's how we also built our 2025 goals in terms of around sustainability. That's how we're building our net zero ambition and marking and tracking against that. I think that summarizes it.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Luciana, to you now. I think Alberto in some of the presentation was mentioning really the help from the outside world. So the whole idea of having an objective that can be run internally as a corporate, as an entity to address some of those KPIs, but also where innovation is really at the core, and also with integration with the startup ecosystem. You represent Beer Garage. So tell us a little bit how you guys are structured, and what really is your focus with Beer Garage here.
For sure. So Beer Garage is the ABI's Innovation Center. We currently have hubs all around the world in strategic places to be closer to the ecosystem, and the partners that can help us innovate outside in. So in terms of US, we are here in Mountain View. We also have a hub in Tel Aviv and Bangalore, and we're starting to do some work in China as well, in Shanghai. And in terms of innovation, one thing that we try to help ABI to do, and also to leverage more sustainability, is in terms of scouting. So we have amazing partners like Mind the Bridge, Microsoft, Meta, NVIDIA, who are always providing support to us in order to find the best ones, that can provide us the best solution from raw materials up to marketing. So in terms of the ABI's kind of work regarding sustainability and innovation on that, we also have a GTEC, our packaging and beverage innovation center that is located in Belgium, if I'm not wrong, right? And just adding one point on what Brian mentioned before, in terms of water usage, that's something that the company is really serious, and trying to tackle in a really, fierce way. We have a lot of kind of bold measurements and bold goals that we want to achieve by 2040, trying to achieve net zero. And GTEC is supporting us a lot on that. And in terms of Beer Garage, we are trying to connect in the ecosystem and try to find the best partners that can help us to achieve that.
And that's an entity at a structure that has multiple centers, right? Again,
Yes.
along the lines of being global in finding the best solutions also locally that can also potentially be scaled globally. Tell us where do you have a presence? So here in Silicon Valley, we want to talk about that. But then where else? You're in Israel, I believe?
Yeah, in Tel Aviv, Bangalore, and Shanghai.
In Shanghai.
Yeah, we have some partners in Brazil as well. But in terms of hub, a physical place to be at, those are the 4 places that we are. Hopefully soon, we're gonna have a physical presence in Brazil as well.
Obviously, that is close to your heart and not only.
Oh,
right?
yes, it is.
Saudade.
Muita.
Garage in Silicon Valley. Tell us a little bit more about that. Why Silicon Valley? Is that the right area where the presence of innovation can be closer to you and more concentrated? I mean, you deal with innovation at large, not necessarily just with sustainability, to be clear. But tell us what has been the added value specifically of being closer to Silicon Valley as a core of the ground up innovation.
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the biggest challenges of Beer Garage is that we look for innovation on the different functions inside ABI. So it can be inside financial, can be inside supply chain, can be inside logistics. So strategically positioned in a place like Silicon Valley, really open doors for us to be closer to the many players that can help us, bring and leverage innovation inside the company. Nowadays it's hard to say, right? Because after COVID, everything became digital, and in fact, people started to make it easier, right? Being able to connect with different places, not having to be physically present there. But Silicon Valley still have a huge impact here, not only in the US, but in the world. We can see that I think currently in the Silicon Valley, you still hold 1/3 of VC firms' investment. It's still in startups located at the Silicon Valley. So I think that's a very a huge number. right? And that means a lot in terms of what Silicon Valley is still going to bring in terms of innovation, not only for the US, in the world. We see that some companies started to migrate for like Colorado, Texas, but I believe that like the core and the cern of innovation, it's still here. And I believe that is a lot because of the culture of innovation. Like it's really strong here, and I think that it's still going to like help companies like us to be looking outside and then bringing innovation inside to create a big impact, not only for the company itself, but of course to our customers and partners.
A very good point. It is also culturally, I think, is a great opportunity as a school to be addressed, also maybe for a period of time, but getting a sense of how impactful proper innovation can be not just in the bottom line of the company, but to everybody's life. And that leads us back to Pelliconi. So we're going full circle here. So welcome to Silicon Valley.
Thank you.
The good and bad and the ugly. So we can talk for a long time of, is that the right time to come to Silicon Valley? But I think you mentioned a good point. That is even through COVID, where everything was going digital, I think there's a lot of statistics of things having moved away. A lot of startups, in particular, the development of new products that's not actually new. That is already by definition kind of a remote or collaborative in different locations. Locations are not really the core anymore. But it's one thing that we also, as a Amanda Bridge, will be tracking. There is the inflow, in fact, of corporates that still come here, actually, with a much more accelerated rate that even compared to just 5 years ago. For this very reason, I think the idea is also that within the corporates there is a certain maturity or graduation of the idea that really innovation is at the core of the growth. And so we need to be more effective in grasping it early on rather than getting the long tail and being passive. So tell us the rationale of why Pelliconi decided, of all places, again, Silicon Valley, and what you expect from your presence here.
Well, the rationale behind this decision were basically two. One is, packaging is not only something that has to contain a liquid or closing a bottle. It's something that has to deliver value, and always having in mind the sustainability focus. So we need new materials. We need also new technologies, something that probably has not been developed for our specific market, but could be captured and used for our market. And it could be then proposed to create value. So we think that here we are probably in the best place to get in contact with this type of solutions. And we have to be good to understand which one could be applicable to us. There is another reason that is probably more soft, that is the cultural aspect that this initiative can bring us as a company. We want to be an innovative company, not just to have an innovation department, which means also using this opportunity as an HR program. In fact, this is run by our people and organization developer, so it's an HR program. We want to bring people here because we want them to open their mind, to get an innovative DNA, something that, well, when you are in contact with innovation, you are in contact with so many different things. At the end of the day, you need to summarize and define what is the road. Mm-hmm. And you need people having developed this skill in their mind, not only for innovation, but in general, a sort of entrepreneurial approach, something that you need to develop, and probably by moving forward, having this type of people in the organization is probably one of the best skills that you have to manage the future. Also the uncertainties that the future is leading every day. And those things have to come from every level of the organization, not just from few people sitting somewhere in the top. And so we think that this is a unique opportunity. We want to use this beside the other scope that I mentioned before to create this type of culture in the company. We will bring people here. We will bring not only managers, also people working in the factory. We want to permeate the company with this type of DNA.
Excellent. Brian, down to some examples of how innovation then has been implemented. I think Alberto mentioned a few from the report. There's plenty more if you want to look at it. Some examples from Coca-Cola and others. We're talking about packaging in particular. Give us some idea of how AB InBev has been working on some innovative and sustainable packaging. So some clear example.
Yeah, I think there's a few. So because obviously sustainability and innovation are closely linked, and the more innovative we can be, the more we can reinvent the wheel, I think, right? And so so definitely, for instance, in Germany, where we have Corona, we've launched Corona as a returnable bottle in Germany. That's a first because this is an ACL printing on the bottle, which is very difficult then to have the proper returns and have the proper quality and ensure that you're not having scuffing, with the mandatories and the label. You're gonna force all of us now to look at the bottle much more closely rather than just looking at the content. So I think so something on that in Germany when we launched Corona's returnable bottle, we had to develop a system in order to track the number of rotations, to inspect that bottle, not only the integrity of the bottle, but ensure that the label was proper. We also launched in Germany a crate made partially from 100% recycled content, and part of that being maritime waste, plastic waste from the ocean. So really, this brand is obviously speaking to many different areas of sustainability in an innovative way. I think one of the things that's most interesting there is, a challenge we have in sustainability is like on returnables. We really want to have more returnable bottles for many different reasons. Obviously, one of the biggest being carbon emissions reductions. And we have this perception, not only us, but our brand teams, our consumers, that, we live in a throwaway economy, right? And so one-way packaging then is premium in a sense. And so we have to change this mindset around that. And that's something we've done with Corona, a premium brand, where we turned it into a returnable bottle in some markets and now working into other markets to do the same, but really changing the mindset that premium packaging can also be returnable, right?
And I would ask a similar question to Pelliconi, more than just sustainability, but in circular economy, I think the cycle of recycling, if that makes any sense. But how do you are implementing some processes on products in terms of a circular economy within Pelliconi? Do you have some examples?
Let's say we want to enable our customer, because at the end it's the consumers and the customer that have to benefit from what we do, to put in place these sustainable solutions like having the use of sustainable steel, sustainable packaging, having a process that is greener than what it is today, like the digital printing that we have developed, and it will be in place industrially in a year from now.
Why is the digital printing an element of circular economy in this case?
I would say mainly reduction of CO2 footprint, but is part also of the sustainability program. So in that sense, we think that all these things, many things together, are part of the value we can create also for the circular economy.
Got it. Yeah. I want to open it to a couple of questions if we're here, so that people, before using the product, can interact with our two speakers. Do I have any questions here in the audience? Please raise your hand.
My question is, we operate on the global market, and when you address to Latin America, Asia, there are different requirements on the production process for you. Recycle, how do you cope with regional differences? How do you survive to bring the market to the level you like?
Let me just repeat for the recording, because it's on a microphone. Both of you working in global markets. How do you take in consideration the locality of those different markets when deciding what to do with sustainability?
It's a great point, because if we take a one-size-fits-all approach on, say, returnable packaging or recycling, for sure we'll fail, right? And so actually, we ran a workshop recently around increasing share of returnables, making it more easy, more convenient, premium brands, you name it. And so one of the things we looked at, though, is the value chain in terms of where the beer goes. In some places we own the wholesaler, some places we have third-party wholesalers, some places we can sell direct to consumer, other places we cannot. And so, for instance, in Brazil, with, I think, Zé Delivery, we're actually leveraging our e-commerce, which has been growing substantially now, partly due to the pandemic, but also due to one of the biggest. Yeah. And so, it's a neighbor alert. So Zé Delivery, we're delivering the beer to the consumer, and we're incentivizing the consumer to give us their empty packaging so we can recycle it, and leveraging that reverse logistics opportunity. But we don't have that everywhere, though, right? So then in other countries, how do we incentivize the waste picker through things like BanQ and bring traceability around the financial payments to the waste picker and more empowerment to the waste picker in order to increase the amount of collection? Because, for instance, on recycled content, we have some very ambitious goals. We need to identify a lot more recyclable materials. We need to close the loop, have more glass coming back in the beer packaging. And so in order to do that in each market, it really requires an entirely customized approach.
Luigi, you want to add something? About how as Pelliconi, we're discussing today how different the same brand you can actually, in every country you might have different solutions. Not in every, but there are possibilities.
Yeah, every country, every market, more or less. I'll say every market might have different requirements, so we need to be able to deliver different solutions. There are twist market, pry market, different requirements for packaging, and we need to be able to deliver those. From the recycle point of view, we are hardly work internally to make sure that our internal, rejection part of the process is recycled, and this is what we are doing. Steel is recycled. We are working also to make sure that plastic that goes inside is a different type of plastic for the future, and some good ideas are also here present. So that's the focus and the direction that we want to take more and more.
Perfect. I think with an interest of time, and we have a speaker, as I said, is in Europe. So thanks for listening, and we'll move it on to the next panel. Matteo will be moderating. Thank you. I'll get your product here. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to ask to join the stage the panelists. Sorry, let me open. Massimo is there? Okay. So I would like to start before to call the other panelists. I would like to start with Massimo. Massimo, thanks. Massimo is connected from Europe. Oh, here you are. So early wake up for you today. So thanks for being here. Can you hear us?
A pleasure. I can hear you loud and clear, Matteo.
Oh.
Happy to be here and thank you for the invitation. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, okay, perfect.
Can you guys hear me?
Perfect. Thank you, Massimo. So I would like to start with you. You are the global R&D sustainability manager for AB InBev. And from your point of view, you are working at the biggest beverage company in the world. And which are the top projects and priority in relation with sustainability? And basically, which are also the KPIs that you are putting up to measure your effort and possibly your success?
Yeah, absolutely, Matteo. That's an amazing question. Main priority for the Global Innovation Technology Center, where I'm working in Leuven in Belgium, is in terms of our own supply chain to reduce Scope 1 and 2 emissions and to really be leading in terms of energy efficiencies, right? So all our projects, we do have as a company strong and net zero ambition by 2040, and this plays a huge role. So decarbonization of our own supply chains, our Scope 1 and 2 emissions. In terms of packaging, I think that's much more important for the audience today. As we see before, recyclability, circularity play a humongous role. And it comes natural that the big focus on our packaging innovation platforms are really about reduction of material utilization and increasing recycled content and recyclability of our own materials, especially in primary packaging. So PET, plastic bottles as well, in specific geographies, aluminum cans and glass. So I think recently we have been piloting a secondary carton in some geographies in South America, which actually upcycles barley straw. So barley normally is one of the natural products of beer, right? And the straw is normally not used for used for animal feeding or animal bedding, etc. So we are piloting ways to upcycle this straw and actually input this in our packaging. But also we announced last year that we are producing the lightest beer bottle in the world. I can't remember the grammage specifically, but you see that every single innovation on these main platforms aim at reduce, reuse, recycle, the key pillar of circularity in packaging.
Thank you,
term-
Massimo. Please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, in terms of KPI, I think it didn't answer the point from your side. I think we work very close with our partners throughout AB InBev as well. Brian, who I had the pleasure to see before on the stage, right? About how much innovation is contributing to the circular packaging sustainability goals in terms of recycled content returnability, but as well as the audience pointed out, decarbonization coming from innovation plays a huge role.
Yes, thank you, Massimo. Yes, so we are the privileged to know which are the projects we are running. We are partnering in the last 3 years of both innovation. So thanks for your point of view. Yes, let's move with the startup panel. I would like to ask to join here on the stage the 3 startups we have today. So Kyra, hoping the right pronunciation, Kyra Eriksson, Head of Partnership at FullCycle. Thank you. Then David Conway, co-founder at Purcell. Thank you, David. Thank you. And last but not least, Ryan Everton, founder at Turn System. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
I apologize. Kira's not here, but I'm Jeff Anderson, the co-founder and CEO of FullCycle.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, guys, so I would like to start with you. So, guys, the rules are the same for everybody. 3 to 4 minutes for the pitch startups, and then a couple of minutes, also more, no problem, for the questions. So the stage is yours. You can present your startups, please.
Fantastic. I'll begin. As I said, I'm Jeff Anderson, the CEO and co-founder of FullCycle Bioplastics. We have a technology that converts food waste, and when I say food waste, I mean any organic waste. Given where we are today, we could take AB InBev's spent grains, the same straw that's used for that other packaging, any sort of pre-consumer food waste like bread waste from a bread factory, or post-consumer food waste like anything that goes into a compost row or an anaerobic digester, cellulosics, forestry waste, any organic material really, into a high-value bioplastic called PHA. PHA has been around for a long time. It's the most sustainable bioplastic in the world. It's compostable, both home and industrially. It's marine degradable, meaning it falls into the ocean. It degrades harmlessly, is eaten by algae and fish. I've eaten some just to prove a point, but it's basically just a microbe fat molecule that's produced by wild-type bacteria that all of us have in our mouths currently that make it and eat it several times a day. And we do this in a circular economy loop. So we co-locate with organic waste aggregation facilities, whether it's a compost facility or a pre-consumer facility like a brewery. If we take that waste, we convert it into the bioplastics itself. It goes out into the normal stream. It's compounded, mixed with things, converted, turned into the bottles, caps, closures, bags, cups, forks, knives, whatever it's used for in this sense. And then it's sold out to the consumers. When it gets to its end of life, it is certified compostable, as I mentioned earlier. And then it goes back in with the food waste into the green bin, the composting bin, the organics bin, and comes back to those composting facilities, which is where we have our facilities co-located. So it comes back to us. We're actually able to take the food waste that comes in normally, as well as our own PHA, and upcycle it into virgin PHA again. This is not a recycling process in that sense where you would have a bottle that would get downcycled or recycled into a running track and then into a landfill. This is a used biopolymer being broken down into the same basic building blocks that we break food waste down into and being rebuilt into a new fat molecule, for lack of a better term. And so we plan to replace as much of the petroleum plastics market as we can. We're starting in the food industry because we can work with these food production facilities as our early adopters. We work with several of the world's largest bread producers, yogurt producers, beverage companies as well. And we're on our way to scale. So we're not in the market yet, but we are scaling up rapidly, and we'll be building our first facility that'll be coming online in 2025, shortly.
Cool, thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you very much. Just for your information, so we can start with a question and then we move on to the next startup, if you agree, guys. Okay, no, just for your information, as a Pelliconi, we buy more than 6 tons of polymers for our products. And we try in the past some PHA polymers. And when it comes to bioplastic, usually the quality of the feedstock can play a crucial role for the final quality of the polymer itself. So how do you diversify good bioplastic compared to the bad bioplastic? So this is mainly the challenge when, as like a producer, we try to put these new products in our production and in our facilities.
Fantastic question. It depends on what type of PHA you're using. PHA is a family of bioplastics.
Absolutely.
They're all compostable and biodegradable, but some have better properties for durable, strong items. Some have better properties for thin films. Some have good oxygen properties and oxygen barrier and water vapor barrier. So it really depends in that sense. We can make all of them, depending on how much we break down the food waste. We can sort of stop it early and make longer chain things, or let it break down further and make shorter chain things to make the durables. In that sense, the traditional way of looking at bioplastics is very much consistent incoming feedstock goes to consistent polymer. We actually find our consistency in the breakdown products. So I can take bread waste and break it down into the same breakdown products that I take, spent grains in that same sense, or even post-consumer waste. As long as I have consistency in the intermediate, I have consistency in the final polymer. So we've sort of cracked that a little bit on our end. But generally, if you're using a more traditional process, even a more traditional process to make PHA, they use canola oil as feedstock, which is very expensive, which is why the cost is so high. Yeah, normally it is garbage in, garbage out. Your impure feedstock leads to an impure bioprocess. We built our process around biological wastewater treatment style fermentation and anaerobic digestion, which is the biogas to energy systems. And that's what my master's degree is in.
Cool, thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on with David Conway at Purcell. So David, also for you, you have 3-4 minutes to present your startups, and then we move on with the next question. Thanks.
So my name is David, and I started a company called Purcell. Not quite as complicated as what Jeff is doing. What we do is really simple. We're just using dispensing systems to get the products used every day. So an example would be different dry food products. So we're not in the liquids, but think about what you see in center store grocery. So this could be candy, snacks, cereals, coffees, really anything dry in center store grocery. We invented a dispensing system that makes that extremely simple and convenient, like pumping gas. So when you're taking a product, you get to see the exact weight and price of the product dispensed, and then you can just check out. So all the hassle of package-free shopping in the past, we kind of took those pain points out of it. And I kind of thought the question that was asked the first panelist, what is sustainability to you? I find that a really interesting question, and I'm going to ask myself that question. We kind of take a different approach to that, saying that sustainability, at least to me and in our company, is finding inefficiencies in the food system. So it's not about just getting rid of carbon and plastic, but finding more efficient ways to move things. And if we look at the liquids and beverage industry, we're not in, but we're trying to kind of copy some models. Is look at dispensers at fast food restaurants, soda dispensers. How does fast food make its real money? Well, it's in drinks, because they're taking a concentrated liquid, bringing it as close to the end consumer as possible, and then packaging it or mixing water in a concentrated substance with nesting bottles at the point of purchase. And that's where you get an incredible business model. So not only is that sustainable, but it works better, right? And you can make more money at it. We're doing a very similar thing, but to food products, dry products. And so that's what Purcell
You have only to convince the retailers, probably, yeah?
No, well, it's been pretty easy. As soon as they've tried it, everybody just makes more money. Brands are making 20 to 30% more, as are retailers, on every sale, because of the efficiency of reducing packaging. So the packaging cost itself goes down, transportation costs go down, and everybody wins. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you, David. So I took some data points from our report, because they are huge. So I would like to share with the audience some of those data. So Humans use 1.2 billion plastic bottles per minute in total. Approximately 91% of those plastic bottles is not recycled, and half of total annual production is for one single use. So your goal is to remove the single use of plastic.
It's really opening up a new market, I would say, because once you're packaging at the point of purchase, it opens up a whole new, sea of materials. Because before we needed plastic to bring something thousands and thousands of miles from the production facility to the end consumer. With refill systems, you're able to package, at the point of purchase. Then you only have to consider the packaging from store to home, right? And so you're able to use actual sustainable materials. Because if we're trying to copy and paste the way things are done today, I just don't know if it's possible. Because if you're going to transport something as far as they're being transported today, you need a great barrier, which is plastic. But if you kind of rethink how and where we're packaging, I think there's a lot of room for innovation in that.
Yeah. But in this, sorry, this is a question for my curiosity, out of topic. So, but you are bringing a new mindset. You should bring a new mindset, basically, on the consumer. So, which are the most things that are stopping you achieving your goal?
Us?
You have not. Yes, you are not.
We're not having any problems at all. We're doing great. Yeah. So. Yeah, I don't know.
But not only you, but also the retailers. So they are. Which are the main challenges you are facing in the adoption of?
Yeah, I would say
this new business model.
I would say getting brands to understand that. So what's happened is plastic is such a great has great barrier properties from air and moisture and whatnot, that they have begun to just require those same barrier properties for everything.
Yeah.
And so once you come to them and say, well, we can get, a 5% OTR or oxygen transmission rate instead of like 1%, where they're like, well, if you're dealing with some of these global brands, well, we require 1. Well, why do you require 1%? Well, because that's what plastic does. So it changing the mindset of saying, well, what's acceptable, what's safe, and kind of getting rid of some of the red tape has been interesting, but it hasn't. We just deal with smaller brands. If they don't want it, if it's going to take a year to get, I can't always say the names, but some of these people, then that's fine. We just work with smaller companies, and we move faster.
Yeah. Thank you very much, David. Okay, Ryan, it's your turn. So I don't want to joke with some words, but let's present your startup turn system. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Grateful to be here today. Thanks, ABI and Pelliconi, for having us. Ryan, founder of Turn. Turn is one of the world's leading reuse providers. We're backed by Live Nation, the world's leading entertainment company, and Ashton Kutcher and Guy Oseari's venture fund, Sound Ventures. Turn really solves a big problem for reuse in particular. There's a huge amount of challenges with reuse. 1, how do you get people to return the product? 2, how do you wash the product? And 3, how do you do it cheap enough compared to single use? If you take ABI, for example, we're part of their 100+ accelerator, and in Colombia, they consume about 1 million bottles a day, that become single-use glass bottles. And the big challenge with that is those 3 problems. How do you convince people to return those glass bottles? How do you get those bottles washed? And how do you do it cheap enough compared to just producing another glass bottle? So Turn's focused really over the last 10 years in building our business on 4 technologies that get us there. It's designed by Bjarke Ingels Group, who designed the first city in space for NASA and the Hyperloop for Branson. It's a really coherent system that allows reuse at scale. And part of it revolves around these 4 things. 1, the packaging has to be light, has to be scalable, has to work. 2, can you wash at a low cost and high scale? And number 3, how do you do that and convince the customers? We convince the customers to return 93% of our products on average, and we do it by gamification. So for example, we're at a music festival in Chicago with Live Nation last month. We had 500,000 cups there, and we got 93% of those cups back. And the way we did it was through gamification. People had the chance to win. when they returned it to our trash bins, and it's like a slot machine. You return your product, you win prizes. And we take all of those cups, they all get washed at scale in our advanced dishwashers that can wash at scale, guarantee cleanliness, and then we return them back into the system. And what it's allowed us to do is supply reusables at scale at a really low cost, because 1, we get the customers to return them, 2, we can wash them, and 3, we can do it at a really low cost. And really you need those in order to drive reuse at scale. And part of our manifesto, as Brian was saying from ABI, you know, like we live in this world where it's single use and it's almost a premium product, but actually reuse should be as cheap as disposables. And so our manifesto has been, how do we go absorb the budget of a company? Say Coca-Cola may be consuming 50 million cups a year. We'd take those 50 million cups at the same price they spend on disposables, and we would wash them and we reuse them. And that's part of how Turn's been able to scale over the last couple of years. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ryan. So, no, we have seen also from our, we developed just 4 years ago, a sort of digital platform to create more engagement with consumers. So, and we saw also from our experience, but also from this report, that gamification can make a difference in the adoption of circularity, mainly from a customer point of view. No? So your business model is being on the fact that users have to return the cups. So how do you incentivize those customers? And if you are also in the field of the gamification, so if you develop some path in order to make this experience more valuable from a consumer point of view.
Yeah, so when we were part of the Anheuser-Busch 100 Plus Accelerator, we devised this gamification technology, which was really built around Taiwan in the 50s. And Taiwan in the 50s, if you knew, everybody paid cash and no one asked for a receipt because everyone wanted to pay cash and they didn't want to pay tax. But within 1 year, by 1951, they'd got around 70% increase in people asking for a receipt, and even though they paid cash. And the reason is that every time, what the government did was they made it every receipt was a free entry to the national lottery. So within 1 year, everybody was asking for a receipt, and now that's across China and a lot of Asian countries now, because that simple gamification mechanic of even if you pay $2, you still ask for a receipt because you may win the $70 million jackpot, really drove that consumer behavior. And so we take the same thing at Turn and really have driven that within all of our different clients, where instead of, sometimes there's been deposit systems, you pay 10 cents, you get 10 cents back, or, we hope people throw the product in the right recycling bin. Turn has said, okay, let's just gamify that experience, no different to the Taiwanese government, and everyone has a chance to win all sorts of different prizes. If we're at a Jack Johnson's concert, like last night we just did Jack Johnson's concert in Nashville, we see this uptake. You can win the chance to meet Jack Johnson, or you win merchandise from Jack Johnson. That drives the consumer behavior. In different environments, it's different things, and that can be driven by real rewards, but also emotional rewards. A lot of kids today walk around on Earth Day just to hit their Apple Watch steps. We do the same thing. Can you find enough of our bins? Can you return enough products to a certain amount of bins? And sometimes it's not even a cost. It's actually cheaper just for us to give that reward than even a physical reward like meet Jack Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Some question from the audience to the startups? Sorry? Yes, please, Marco. Thank you. Sorry, Marco, I give you the microphone, so.
In the caps and closures, as we produce those, there's a small percentage of plastic is the gasket that is inside to make the pressure retention. And we are investing a lot of money in trying to avoid the use of that plastic. And we believe that probably a transition point could be a bioplastic. The main challenges of bioplastic is the food law approval. Some of those bioplastic are good for many products, but not for food contact. Do you have anything new to tell us?
Yeah, it's a great question. You'll find certainly some bioplastics are not food safe or food contact ready. And it depends. And as someone who uses a waste to make my bioplastic, of course, we get asked that all the time. Yeah, well, PHA in general is considered food safe. So our bioplastic in general is that. We have to go through, of course, the same steps to ensure that it passes all the tests and all that, but it's chemically identical to the other ones that are made. So yeah, we actually, our major clients are food companies. So food packaging and even primary, secondary, and tertiary packaging, we can do them all. Yeah, of course.
Okay, guys, many thanks. So I work in the field of innovation since at least more than 10 years, so I'm getting older, by the way. But so what I learned from the field is that good ideas are good in general, but execution is everything. So and you just have seen us a perfect example of execution. So thank you very much for your presence here. Coming into conclusion, I would like to ask the final question to Massimo. Massimo, you are with us?
I'm still with you.
Yes, thank you.
This in great, yeah, no, thank you guys.
Okay. Now, Massimo, the last question is for you, and by the way, is also an interested question from us. So when we talk about sustainability, in sustainability there are a lot of meanings and definitions. So we have just seen reusability, recyclability, bioplastic. But from your point of view, that is a privileged point of view, which might be for you the most urgent to work today, also from a packaging producer like us?
Yeah, tremendous question. So I get these in two different points, what my idea of sustainability is, and then what is the most urgent point to sort out, gap to close in terms of sustainability. To me, sustainability is making sure that future generations, doesn't matter what we do today, but future generations still have the luxury and the privilege to have as much as resources and well-being that we are living with today, right now. And we saw this in this panel amazingly with Purcell, FullCycle, and Turn, in the previous panel as well. Each one of us has their own definition of sustainability, but in one way or the other, they're all coming under this umbrella. About packaging and about packaging and about sustainability, well, maybe because it's 3 a.m. here, but I do believe that circularity is the most important factor. And circularity means several things for different type of material, being it glass, being it aluminum, carton, and especially plastics. To me, for plastic, circularity means non-negotiability on recyclability, even preferably circularity of the packaging itself, and then an extremely important factor to consider, and I saw in the panel today, decoupling from fossil fuels. So this is eventually a step that the industry, in my view, would eventually need to take. But yeah, you see that by doing this way, we can open up plastic with decarbonization. We can open up consumer engagement. We can really open up brand engagement as well, making plastic, shifting the perception of this very useful material more on a positive shade with an industry change. I hope this answered your question, Matteo.
No, absolutely. So we have a lot of work to do at home. So thank you also for your consideration. Okay, guys.
But you are in very good hands by the material exposed today. So
Thank you very much, Massimo. So here we are. Thank you, guys. Thanks again.